This is Beingness. I'm David Scott. My guest today is Nicola Light. She's a Reiki master, Galactic Shaman, and soul to soul mentor, and the author of the Pleiadian Handbook for Human Ascension, the new book. Nicola, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
It's great to be with you. I
Thank
want to
you.
start with some of your background and how you came to this work. For those of you who haven't, those out there who haven't encountered your work yet.
I would say it was around about 2012, which many of us sort of came online, if you want to call it come online, started to shift into their dark night of the soul. And it was a time where there were big changes in my life. There were sort of members of the family that sort of moved out of my life, and so I started becoming very unsatisfied with life in itself. And then as I started to sort of move deeper into sort of trying to search for something that would help me regulate my emotions, as I was sort of at this real sort of very, very low ebb, I started a little meditation group at a spiritualist church. And through that journey of meditation, then I sort of moved into sort of healing circles. I took Reiki. I didn't even know what Reiki was, to be honest with you. I literally got like, I need to do that. And I didn't even know what it was. And then that aligned everything to come in, where pure channeling started to come in, connecting to different realms of levels of vibrations of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that started sort of opening up my energy. And I started to get information come in, or little nuggets of wisdom that actually came out of myself. I started to remember. And that's where I find myself to be. It was over that period of time with little ebbs and flows of experience. It's sort of got me to those labels of a galactic shaman, and what's one of those types of energy. You know, we all know Reiki master, or the majority of us do. But the gifts and talents started come on online, and so I'm going to call her my higher self, which is actually me, spoke and said that you're a galactic shaman, which was basically somebody that can actually transmute negative energy through their energetic field. And then those gifts and talents starting to come in. So it sort of feels like it's such a long time ago that all of those things happened, but every step of the journey got me to the place that I am and how I am now showing up authentically, and have then connected with you, and then the writing of the book, etc. So it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future, you know, as things unveil even further.
I know that we worked with different forms of galactics, like the Pleiadians, like the Arcturians, even the Mantis and other higher beings.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write this book about the Pleiadians, and what's that particular connection you have with them?
Okay. So along all of this sort of opening up of my energy, and started then sort of working with a sense of galactic alliance, the Pleiadians sort of come in and work with me to help people with their emotional state. So we have energy that moves through us through the experience, and what we do is we tend to sort of trap it in the body. So it might be from an ancestral, you know, inherited physical body, that you inherit the junk in the DNA, or it's through the experience, maybe childhood trauma, you know, experience through life, that we hold on to things in the physical body itself. So the Pleiadian sort of energy that came in, which is actually an aspect of myself that I work with. So it's a bit complicated when you first sort of open up to this, because you think, well, how can I be this? And how can I be that? And how can I be that as well? And so when we sort of start to understand that we are all things through all time and space, then we can start to sort of tap into that energy. So consciousness of the Pleiadians were coming in to help me understand all that I teach about and all that I know about and remember about the emotion and physical body, with the energy that moves through us, about honoring the physical body, honoring the energetic field, and allowing that energy that is stored physically in the body. and as we were sort of speaking before we came on and came into the recording, is that sometimes the physical body shows up a sense of pain in the body. And what is the body trying to show us? So what the Pleiadians were coming through with all of these channeling pieces was basically to enable me to write some information down that came through in a pure channel state, so that I could then correlate data. So within the book, there's lots of channeled pieces. Now, it actually took me 5 years to get it published.
I believe it.
I was putting it out to the universe about, sort of how do I actually get all of this information into a physical book? And I know that your work also is in that sort of alignment. But a lady sort of came along and sort of spoke about being a co-author. So I wrote a book with 11 others, which is called They're Here, Get Ready, They're Here. It's actually been awarded an award, that particular book, which has been really lovely.
I saw that on the Facebook page. Congratulations on that.
Yes. So that book, it was basically the first chapter that I wrote in that particular book, Get Ready, They're Here, then was placed. So my higher self came in and said, well, let's put that in as the first chapter of the Pleiadian Handbook for Human Ascension. And then I was like, right, great. So then I worked with this beautiful lady called Amira, and then we created the book. So that's how the book came about. But it did take 5 years worth of channeling pieces of information about energy flow, emotional states, and all that sort of goes on in that book are, different aspects of human ascension, which is the raising of vibration.
Yeah. I think one of the really accessible pieces for people who are on that journey is where you go into decoding ascension symptoms, because a lot of people are going through what they call ascension flu, and I've gone through myriad things, and you start going, wow, I'm breaking down, or I'm going crazy, or I'm dying, and really dying, and maybe you are, maybe you're suffering a sort of ego death. Everybody I know who's on this journey has really been pushed beyond the limits. And you mentioned the dark night of the soul many, many times, and maybe even had crossed over to the other side. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the work that you do in your one-on-one mentoring, the work that you did in the book, where you can start addressing these symptoms and decoding them?
Yeah. So when we speak of coding, it's quite an interesting subject, which many people might not quite understand and might not be open to. They are literal codes that come out of my voice. So that would be light language or light coding, and also through mudras, hand movements. So those that know about Reiki, you've got the chakra and all of these sort of symbols. Now these energy flows can actually go into the energetic field and upgrade their energy. So that's the sort of work that I do with people. If somebody's got a blockage of energy that sits within the physical body, whether it's a mental, an emotional, or a physical sense of block, then I assist them to work through and release that dense energy that sits in their physical reality. So as I've been working through all of this time understanding by working on myself first, and then actually assisting people through their journey, I can sort of understand what it is that I do by tweaking the energy. And that's what my team of Pleiadian guides are assisting me with, as well as the Arcturians, which deal more with a sense of structure of the energy of the code. So it's more about the DNA of the physical cell itself, where the Pleiadians deal more with more of a flow energy, more of something that's a little bit more less tangible, a little bit more esoteric, shall we say. So more of the spirit that wants to come into the body, so embodiment, so that we can hold that light. So when we're going on the ascension journey, what we're doing is what we want to do is release the density to make space so that we can then upgrade it with more light code, more consciousness held within the body, which I wrote on here, which is it's the inner light wisdom here it's the inner light wisdom that allows you to start to remember and start to be more authentic within your beautiful self. So we're letting go of that ego and starting to turn on and to remember, which again is another, it's a mental field. It's you remembering everything that you are. So it in the very beginning of the journey, it's all very confusing, absolutely very confusing. And then what happens is we get these little seeds of growth, and we can start to sort of, as long as we're open to this, like these conversations, as long as you're open to it, you may not understand it quite yet, what I'm talking about, but just be open to those little seeds and little energetic pulses that are coming from David and I, that allows you then sort of like, I'm intrigued about this. I need to find out more information about this.
Yeah.
I need to meditate on this. So be open to receive whatever comes in. It's got me to where I am at right now. So if it helps by saying, actually, this is the way I did it, do it your way, but just be open to receive what the universe is trying to show you, by bringing this video in, for you to watch and go like, I don't quite understand it, but there's something about it, type of energy. I don't know if that went off track on the question, but
yeah, that'll unpack over time. Dr. Gilbert talks about packed thought forms, and Dolores Cannon too, and many others. In conversations you and I have had in the past, I see you might be understanding codices and light codes in a similar way. Dolores Cannon says, think of the word Christmas. It's so packed with meaning that inside that one little 2-syllable word is the three wise men and Jesus and candy canes and Bing Crosby and Christmas. And that's one word. What happens when you have a whole chapter? What happens when you have a whole book? What happens when you have a whole library? And then the entire Akashic record.
yeah.
So one little word like that can, be a seed that's planted in your heart and then unpack and inflect over time, over your whole lifetime and many lifetimes. Just think of the wisdom and intelligence that the ETs and the angelics and the ascended masters and the celestials are sharing with us. But they got to slow it way down because we're so slow. They're ready to just give you the whole transmission all at once, and you would just drop the body, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you just fry. You just like on the floor.
I think a lot of these teachers and gurus are like that. I consider you in that realm.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting, actually, is that when I talk of a download, as we sort of raise in our vibration, we start to get these little in the ear and start getting information that comes in like a light bulb that we just don't know how we retrieve this information. And then you might actually read something or see something and you're like, I know that already. How do I know that? I didn't research it beforehand. This is what we call like downloaded information. And it's easier to sort of like perceive it to be if you think of yourself almost like a computer where you hold information within your data bank. We've got a background information, which is your subconscious, that runs the front end of your program. So whatever it is that we see out here has a subconscious back program. So the more that we can upgrade that back program, the more the interface then starts to bring in synchronicities that is correspondent to that back program. So there's a lot of work that can go on within our understanding of the word that you speak about, is how we perceive reality. So if there's something in the back program that you've experienced as a child or experienced through the word that you speak about yourself, you're programming in what it is that what you're interfacing with, what you're projecting. So we must sort of look at and be very consciously aware about what do the words we speak. Are we speaking it within our minds? Are we speaking it externally? Are we speaking it about others? Is it about ourselves? Is it a back program of information that we can look at within ourselves to sort of show us the way, to allow us to sort of morph and change by the word? because the word creates. And I love what you just said there about Dolores Cannon. I never thought about that in that way before. You know, Christmas just brings in just one word, brings in experiences of past now moments. That's so powerful. We must understand that. We must, maybe, or maybe not. But in my perspective or reality, yes, let's dive deeper into the word, which is, like you say, held within books, within, you know, within content, within our minds, within our back program of what we're running on. What is our belief system? What is our programming?
Yes.
So that's the ascension, isn't it?
It is. You know, my business is One Button Publishing, and we help authors from business thought leaders to people writing fiction to people writing memoirs. And one thing that really occurs to me is this line from the Bible. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light." God said, "Let there be light," meaning speech and language is precedent to light. It comes before stuff. So I speak
Yes.
this whole world into existence with what first starts out as a vibration of intention and imagination,
Mm.
and then gets transmuted, comes out through the throat chakra. And I want to talk about that later because you have a really interesting view on what that is and what this whole complex is.
Yeah.
It's brought into form, and then everything we see around us started out as language, didn't it? It
Yeah.
is at its fundament sonic in nature. It's tonal. And a lot of people like do ancient aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos, people like that, ancient astronaut theory will talk about a lot of these ancient structures like the Egyptian pyramids being built with some dimension of sound that could levitate large blocks of wrought material into place. It's literally showing you that intention and your words create the universe around you. There's a lot of power in that, as you just said, the word.
Mm. The 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 word itself comes from breath.
Mm.
And so if we look at the elements, so we have air, fire, earth, and water. And then we have ether, which is spirit. Okay. Everything that we speak of that runs on the fuel of air comes through the breath as the breath. So as we breathe in, as we breathe out, it carries the word. So it's actually consciousness speaking through us that is held within a pattern or an understanding of a complexity of word with different meanings upon it. So if we speak of coding, so like coding, it holds the vibration from a higher resonance of energy that bypasses the mind. So if people are really drawn to coding, so like code expression, then it's because there is a soul remembrance of the content of the data waves that run in the code that surpasses mind. So when a transmission comes in or a information comes in, it's data but held in such a high frequency is that we don't actually understand it because we haven't got a learnt understanding of it. So it's not a linear language. It's not something that's learned. It's something that, as I said before, you need to be open to receive it for it to be translated through you. And that comes in with conscious breath work. That's in my eyes, that is the one and only, if you're going to do any sort of practice, every time I would say it would be breath work and move your body. If you can do those two, so it's a yoga practice, it's Tai Chi, it's intuitive sort of body movement, anything that you can do to allow that release of energy out is through breath and body movement. It's so, so powerful.
And where would you advise people to start when it comes to breath practice?
It's interesting, actually. Within my own journey, I can only speak of that through my own experience. And I always would say it's an intuitive breath work. There are many different formats or different types of breath. You could do Kundalini breath, Wim Hof does a practice. Mm-hmm. So if you're very much of mind, go and seek somebody else's perspective on a mind breath. My understanding, which I present, is absolutely every single time, is to release that, do it your way, and not be overly prescribed into you must breathe out 4, must breathe in 4, because your body knows exactly how to breathe. Okay. Your body knows exactly how to do it. So when we allow the body just to literally start to breathe itself, and you slightly come out of the body in a meditative state, that type of breath work is super powerful, because you don't have to unlearn how to breathe. We naturally just breathe anyway. But as you move deeper into a meditative state, you can literally just allow the body to surrender to the body. The body starts to then intuitively breathe. So the answer to your question is, how would you, is in just let the body breathe itself. Because if there's a deepening of a, then it's because the body wants that. And the body wants to release the density from outside of itself. And it knows instinctively. It's a beautiful being in its own right. It knows how to do it. But what we do, we shut that down from control within our minds of, I must breathe this certain way, and just literally just simplify everything. Simplify everything. Just surrender to the whole process. That divine light within you will spark up your own inner light breath. So I would just look at your breath when you go into meditation. So if anyone's listening to that, just think of it as being more of the body breath rather than thought breath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to ask, can you and how should you combine that with your daily meditation or your prayer practice?
So it's so every morning and every night. So I check in as I rise and as I go offline. So as I go off to sleep. In between, there might be some times that I might actually sort of go into a meditative state. Sometimes I have these moments of being called to sleep. And those sort of moments would then be incorporated in. So it's the same sort of thing. But I get like a download of information. So it's like I get taken offline. I'm called to go to the sofa to have a little 10-minute nap, so that I can actually sort of get more information in the body. It sounds a bit weird, but let's go with that. So if you're in these sort of like, if you're awakening, then set your intention as soon as you wake up with being grateful for the day. These beautiful, lovely little practices that we can do. Keep it nice and simple. And then I always ask ourselves, okay, what have I got booked in my diary in that time pocket? What is it that I have to do within the time, my linear time? And what is it that you are saying to me that would be more flow state for me to experience? So is it that I'm creating content for my YouTube channel? Is it that I'm sitting down writing? Is it that I need to sit and contemplate and deeper into my intuitive breath so that I can start to release? Is it that I need to listen to music and move my body and then really sort of ground into the body? Is it that I need to go for a walk? So my higher self sort of says, okay, Nicola, get up, get yourself tidied up, clean your teeth, get some breakfast or not, and then do this, this, and this. So I'm always one step ahead of myself, being guided through the journey, and my breath will suit the situation that I find myself in. If it's in a meditative state, it may be that I even go into no breath, where it feels like I'm pure observation and there's hardly any breath at all. And sometimes if I'm moving the physical body with music, then the breath will deepen and then start to release the energy through me. So it depends on where I'm being guided to where that breath comes in. And then at the close of day, as I fall to sleep, then it literally is the body just starts to reset itself. I set my intention to sort of, for the morning, as I arise, I will be in a beautiful state of flow, etc. We can do all these beautiful words these intentions that we can set, mantras maybe. And then with that, the breath just literally just carries us through the day.
I had the experience. You mentioned the importance of sleep. To me, it's absolutely fundamentally important to the spiritual practice. If I'm, if I do it incorrectly, then my whole day can spiral out of control. Generally, I need to wake with the divine Shakti when it starts rising bright very early in the morning.
Mm.
In my part of the world, and maybe in everybody's, just based on where they're at in relationship to the sun at that moment.
Mm.
I'm called to get up usually around 1:30 or 2 a.m. And most people say, well, geez, that's absurdly early. I feel like I'm getting up early at 5 or 6 a.m. And that's true. It's a discipline and a practice that I found is fundamentally important for me.
Mm.
If I rise at that time, the divine Shakti is moving outward. And it's saying, come join us, come participate in the world. And we're going to be a wave that you can ride into the world, and we will supply you with divine grace all day long.
Mm.
So if I get up 1:30 a.m. when my eyes open, turn on the lights, take a cold shower, light a candle and incense, meditate and pray for, half an hour, 15 minutes even. The whole day is dialed in and done. I don't have any more work all day long because God does the whole thing for me the whole rest of the way. I just give everything over to him. There's no planning. There's no trying. There's no structure. Whereas if I sleep in because I'm lazy or let that lapse, or I, just want to feel more comfortable in bed, there's something that happens where that divine Shakti that's going outward says, okay, we're out here. You don't want to join us? We're going to come back and double back on you. And it concusses, it hits you in the third eye and closes you off. And then you're full of obstructions all day long. You got brain fog. You can't see. Everything you see is full of irritation and annoyance and anger and agitation. And the whole geopolitical scene seems so wrought with trouble and peril, And then when you're in coherence, the whole world is in coherence, isn't it? It's totally contagious. So I've been instructed by my masters, including the Arturians, including the Divine Mother and others, get up when we tell you to. Don't futz about. And do what you're supposed to and do your dharma in the world. Don't go back to sleep. So there's that culling that needs to happen from sleep that is fundamentally important for letting the body, rewire and coalesce. But the work we're doing when someone says you're awakened or you're awake, the work we're doing is right here now while we're awake, isn't it? So surf that wave with grace and elegance and ease, or do you want that same wave to pummel you and start, burying you? I find sleep to be fundamentally important. I'm glad you brought it up.
Absolutely. It's for the body to recuperate. It's the body to reset. That's what sleep's all about. And with our consciousness, if we look at the celestial beings, regardless of, for those of you that are out there that are not early risers, it's okay not to rise at 1:30 in the morning. Also,
Certainly,
everybody has their own perspective of reality. And how that you do it will be the way that you do it. Some people will absolutely, totally get it, David. I get up, do it like this. And if that's the case, then do it that way. Don't force yourself if you feel that it's not, and it's not a coherent practice for you.
No, trust me, this has come from, 50 years of trial and error and cause and effect. It used to get to the point where it was optional. And your day may or may not go okay if you sleep in. Now, the rules, and maybe you've experienced this too, the rules and prescriptions about how I need to behave just as one individual are tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and I cannot deviate from them. Otherwise, I'll get really punished. There's no putting it off for a week or 2 weeks or letting things ride or, living a little bit out of integrity or living a little bit out of your dharma. You are not allowed to. You will be absolutely punished and flagellated and strucken down and smited moment by moment by moment. And as you say, that practice is different for every single person. Everybody needs to feel into their own, their own destiny in that way, don't they?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's sort of like that, what I was speaking about, that you're guided that one footstep ahead of yourself that enables you to sort of like find what sits right for you. So I would get up actually very much later than that. And so when I do arise out of that out of that sleep state, then I anchor into that light that shines from within me, that God spark within, that Mother, Father, God within. And I ask for that to come in that time of now, because if we look at time, it doesn't exist anyway, because everything's in the now. But if your template, so template meaning your blueprint, your perspective of reality, from your perspective, if you rise at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, but you can switch yourself on at that point and kickstart off your day with that sense of being guided through the process, then do it that way. Use the breath, use the intention, use all of that, because the sun will shine regardless. But if we see the sun shining within inside of ourselves, then that rise in that consciousness can be sort of surfed upon. So rather than struggling upstream, trying to get things done, the ebbs and flow of life, is just go with the flow of it. If you are divinely guided into getting up early, then do so. If you need to sit down and feel like I need to write for some reason, then go create. Whatever it is that you're doing, do it with a sense of an inner guidance, an inner alignment, so that you can then really create from that position. Now, it might be very difficult for some people that have a 9-to-5 job. And so you've got to navigate that sort of process of, well, I don't like getting up early, but I've got to get up at this time because maybe I'm on, sort of work where I have to get up at this time, or, I work really late and my body clock doesn't work with lateness.
Mm-hmm.
So the universe starts to adjust our outward field of our experience to then start to sort of morph and change within us. So, sometimes with these dark night of the soul, the universe will literally bring to us synchronicities where there will be a job loss, where there are shifting out of, of old relationships. And these moments aren't easy to navigate. This awakening journey is not for the faint-hearted. The normal, the comfortable, forget it for a while until you actually deconstruct. You're not going to move into who you truly are. So we're moving out of the old into the new, but that transition, that awakening journey, that rising of our vibration will take that little bit of courage, devotion, commitment into show me the way, into surrender, into trust. So then that alignment then comes in for you to step into your authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's the journey, isn't it?
Mm. The project you worked on, Get Ready, They're Here, I found really fascinating. And from my experience, everybody talks about disclosure. Oh, we're going to have the moment where the spaceship comes down and lands on the White House lawn. It's going to be disclosure. People are going to recognize aliens and the ETs for the first time. For me, they have been part of my daily bread since I can remember, since I was very, very young. So it's hard for me to even think about what disclosure means, because it's been on a personal level. They've disclosed themselves in myriad ways throughout my whole life, which is interesting, because some people have that same experience and some others are just getting ready to come online and they will experience that for the first time. So hopefully with a book like, the Pleiadian Handbook for Human Ascension, it gives a little bit of a roadmap for what those energies are, how to apprehend them, and how to invite them into your life without being frightened about the beyond, right?
Yeah, definitely. And within that book of Get Ready, They're Here is different perspectives of disclosure. It's so beautiful when you listen to everybody's perspective of their own reality, of how they actually connected. And the bulk of people, what we're speaking about is actually, it's an internal job. It's that, like you said, David, it's that understanding of that galactic connection, that we are all that is. We're a little fractal of the all that is. And when we start to raise in our vibration, we start to enter into different dimensions and realms of understanding. And those dimensions are galactic. And so from my perspective of what I understand from my own reality, from my ego mind, is that the disclosure comes from within. And in the collective field, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I haven't been shown. I just know that I focus on me, I focus on my light, and I allow that alignment to keep adjusting within my energetic field so that I can then start to hold more light, so that I can be more present. From a collective perspective, I don't know if we're going to have ETs land on the lawn, etc., because we look at their frequencies completely different. One thing I would say that might be pushing your audience a little bit is that where there is where the land holds a higher frequency of light, then there are opportunities with connection to our beautiful galactics by the land holding the resonance for them to enter into those spaces. So I'm not going to go too deep into that within this conversation, but
You talk
there
about
is
power places like Glastonbury and Mount Shasta and etc.
the power places, and it's not necessarily where the public would be guided to. They're little offshoots from those spaces. And I know as I sort of travel around, I've been called to do an awful lot of traveling, and I'm doing 5 retreats this year in different places of the world. And within these spaces, I know there will be something that goes on in my energy that is then helping me to remember who I am. So grid work. So for those that are not sure what grid work is that when we're on the land, we assist the illusion, the collective illusion, to lift. And the more that these power places can move out and be released from this reality, the more the potential for a galactic force to actually be able to be in the density. You could imagine that you've got these beings that come in that are so bright and hold this frequency. For them to land into this density in a collective field would be very difficult for them to navigate. So when we raise in our vibration and they come down a little bit, there we have a connection. So it's more internal connection rather than external now. But in the future, absolutely, there will be contact, physically in contact. But I don't know the whole journey of that. Well, we'll just literally walk through it, David, and just see what presents itself as we go. But it's more of that internal remembrance that we start to connect with these elements of galactics. Which
do you think there's going to be, as some people do, a separation of Gaia, two Earths, almost like a cell dividing? One is going to stay embedded in 3D consciousness, and one is going to ascend into 5D awareness, and there'll be 2 timelines that are coexisting. Because for me, I think that there's been ascended masters and saints throughout history who lived in that 5D awareness already. They were occupying and being an ambassador of paradise.
Yes.
Regardless of all the tumult and craziness in their world in 1500 or 1700 or 2026.
They're stepping out of the reality. They're not, if you could think of it energetically, plugging in. You're not plugging into, let's call it 3D reality, where that collective field holds an awful lot of distortion, which we'd call that illusionary field, which is what I just spoke about with their energy that sits. So like this illusionary, misty energy that most people are plugged into. And when you're plugged into that illusionary field, all you will see is your mind and your body. When we start to unhook from that illusionary field and move deeper down into the original template of Gaia, once we start to ground deeper into ourselves, we start then to rise up into spirit and then move it down into matter. So the organization of everything is to switch that light on inside of yourself so that you can anchor into the purest of light, into the original template of the Earth system, so that you then start to run that pure program through you. And when you do, and you've offloaded all of that data of all that junky junk, all that data, and you put it up in the Akashic records rather than running it through you, which is the healing journey. And this is when I've heard this, which was like when you move the energy down into the embodied state, into the healing journey, the body will start to rejuvenate. So you can hold more light. And I was, whoa, that's interesting. But when you hold more light in your physical body, you can transfer your whole physical body rather than going from 3D, crossing the bridge of fourth to five and dipping in now and again, you'll literally step in and hold the frequency, detach from the past. And there is where you stand in 5D reality. There is where you stand as an ascended master in physicality without actually going through the process of death and incarnation. You're moving through that ascension in such a way that you hold the frequency of the consciousness of the fifth dimension, that you literally, it feels to me, and I don't know yet, but it feels to me intuitively that you will literally just disappear from that 3D reality. It's like when people say that they walk through portals or they rose up. I don't know yet, but I am absolutely, this is my life path of, yeah, this is 3D reality. This is who I am not. This is all of the data that I hold inside of myself that runs in that collective illusionary field. How do I move through? And how is through that journey of experience for me to then transfer my consciousness, what I hold within my cellular structure, what I hold within my emotional body, my mental field, for me to literally transform to this reality.
And interestingly, as
Really interesting.
a thought leader, as a galactic shaman, someone like you, someone like our highest teachers, I believe have the ability to occupy that former timeline, that 3D timeline that you described, and be a vessel for the collective upliftment of everybody to come with you, because you don't just phase out of that reality and drop into another one, because to some degree that old reality is you.
Yeah.
Like everything I see is an appearance of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need to escape all the tumult and trouble and war and division and predation and fear. Okay, well, those things are myself, aren't they? I don't escape them.
Exactly.
They transform. There's only one substance. As Nisargadatta says, there's only one substance, not two substances. So there's not 3D life and 5D life, evil and good and problematic and perfect. Everything is perfect. And I've often thought about what you just described, that conundrum. Does someone just die and slip off into another timeline? And do they just zap out of existence, as you say, walk through a portal and land in 5D? Or is 5D a way of being and seeing which exists just exactly in this realm? Because if I go there, as they say in Buddhism, when Buddha attains enlightenment, the entire universe attains enlightenment with him, right? With him or her.
Love that so much. Yes.
I believe you are that, an emblem
Yeah.
of it. It's
Yeah.
embedded in your book. The codes are in your book. If you truly get there, not 98%, not 99%, but 100% embodied in the field that you're talking about of awareness of 5D, everybody goes with you because everybody
Yeah.
is you.
Yes. That's so beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. It is that the journey of transition is walking through chaos. It is the absolute observation of duality. You're not seeing it as good or bad, you're just seeing it. And when we're going through that transition, it is that movement of, I see. I see. We might get triggered within the experience of it emotionally. Somebody might mirror something back at you that then you start to then, that's quite shocking. But it shows us who we're not. So they're giving us a gift. If we try and escape from anything because it's too hard to hold, it's too sticky to hold, I don't like this, then you're trapping yourself in your mind with the words that you speak or judge. So the alignment more is about observation, using your breath, going internally to see that you are all things, thanking the universe for the beautiful gifts and the alignments that comes from that resonance of connection. And I know that when we connected some months ago now, as soon as we came into each other's energetic field, it was like, I know you. There was a beautiful alignment of the universe that brought us these beautiful gifts of connection. And the more that we see ourselves and rise through our traumas and have compassion within our hearts, then we see things from this perspective, which in all totality is actually living 5D. It's the perception of reality. It's not the dualistic experience. You're moving into here. So whether we move through a portal or not, I don't know yet. But the opportunity for us is to seed our light, to share our experiences, so that when people are open to receive, they see the authenticity within ourselves and say, well, actually, she's got something here, but I don't quite understand yet. But that's okay, because if she can do it, so can I. However that journey is taken, then so be it. Just allow yourself to walk the path that you are being presented with, that you are guiding yourself back home into your own remembrance.
You had a great conversation with Alexander Quinn on his podcast, and I'm going to link that below for people who want to check that out, because I thought it was one of the most flowing, authentic conversations I've ever seen. And it was so real and so beautiful to see you interact. And you touched on something maybe a little bit similar with him, where you just had a communion when you first met, and
Yeah.
there's just a kinship, or like a brotherhood, sisterhood that happened, and it's really beautiful to see that on YouTube, because we were talking before this conversation, it's somewhat presentational. It's hard to be exactly yourself. So when you can find yourself in that authentic alignment and lose track of time and get into that zone of beauty and let other people witness it, it's quite a wonderful thing. And one of the things that Alexander talked about is that the sort of in terms of the angelics, in terms of the celestials, there's a sort of taxonomy or relationship. And 3 or 4 that he touched on that I found were really interesting are the Pleiadians, whom we've talked about, the Arcturians, who we've touched on, the Andromedans, and also the Mantis.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to give us your sense of how those beings interact, who they are in relationship to themselves and to us. And then I'd love to, after that, maybe go into a little bit about the Mantis. But who are those 4, and do they exist in a sort of taxonomy like Alexander laid them out to be?
Yeah, again, it's all perspective and all experience. The commonality with Alexander Quinn and I is Arcturians, which hold that structured energy, as I spoke about before. And they come forward with very much almost like a sense of blueprint, architect, alchemy. So they come in with a structured energy. They hold a very, very fast-paced energy. Pleiadians come in with more of an emotional state. They come in with that more flow state. They're sort of very closely linked to humanity. We hold very similar traits. Now, Alexander doesn't have an awful lot of connection with Pleiadians. He deals with more of the Andromedan, which is holding more of a network of alliances, more of a blanketed sort of energy, so more of a collective field. And then we have mantis beings, which are more an insectoid type of beings that work more in the DNA structure, upgrading the structure of the physical body, the DNA structure. I can only speak from my own experience, so I don't sort of look into textbooks about what people say this and that. But there is a vibration of energy that comes in with code. So if we think of the Pleiadians, it holds more of a softer English-speaking type of code, so such as Alakiantok Bakiata A Simakiten E Shamaitan A Emabograma Siki Ina E Shana E Shan E Shamakiten E. So it's more flowy, a little bit slowed down in vibration, and then a Arcturian code is faster. So it sounds a bit strange, that one, but the codes are a bit more. And then Mantis tends to have a vibration of more clicks, more of a, which tends to be more at the back of the throat. So the dialects that come in with code, which shows the resonance of consciousness that is held within these groups of conscious beingness, okay, is holding an energy. And there are so many different pockets that we can move into all these beautiful, so we have humanity that is very empathic, and we hold all of these beautiful elements of Pleiadian, of this being, of angelic, of dragon, of, and of fae, of ascended masters. So because we are all that is oneness, when we start to open up the heart, we can plug into, and I literally just sort of see it like, do you remember the old-fashioned operator systems when you would be put through to one particular telephone line? Nowadays it's all digital, but you would literally get a plug and plug it in, and it feels very much like that. So if you're plugging into these levels of consciousness, it's not that you're thinking to get to those spaces. It literally comes from your inner light that is held within you, and it emanates outwardly. So you start to switch on. You're not literally plugging in, because we've got to invert everything. So it's actually us igniting an Arcturian consciousness. It's igniting Pleiadian consciousness. It's igniting the angelic within. So it's something that is really sort of very important to me to actually also state is anything outside of yourself that is presenting, observe it. If it's coming from you and filtering through your heart, it's a divine spark of light. So invocation of something outside of yourself may hold a little bit of duality within the system. Okay. So always go inside of yourself, plug into your inner light inside of yourself, but you might think it's out. And there is where you hold that beautiful, that sort of beautiful knowing that it's safe, that you are protected, that you're not invoking anything outside of yourself that takes away your power. You are aligning to your sovereignty. And this is a very important word for all of us, is we start to remember who we are and moving into our divine sovereignty of light. Our wisdom sparks within us. And this is the journey where we get to this ascended mastery.
When you were talking about inner and outer expressions of these higher beings, I thought about, do you remember R2-D2 in Star Wars?
Yeah.
There's a scene where he projects this hologram of Princess Leia.
Yes.
It says, "Help us, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope." I think those beings, when we see them, they're just projections of our own heart made visible. And I'll tell you about the first time that I met the mantis, and maybe you can tell us about your first experience with them. Did I tell you about this before?
I don't think you might have done.
So I had no idea what this being was. I don't think I was particularly highly spiritual at the time. I wouldn't have had a conception of these types of beings. But I felt like, I was downtown where I grew up in Denver, next to Confluence Park, which is two rivers that come together. In the Native American tradition, is a really big power place, Confluence Park. And beyond that is the skyline of Denver. And I felt overtaken by a force that I felt like I was dying, actually. I called my stepfather to try to help me out of it. I was doubled over in my car, into the passenger seat. I felt like I was dying. And after all of this, some creature jumped out of me and appeared in my visionary state. He was about 8 feet tall, and he was made out of electricity, green electricity, electrical being. So all the articulated limbs were just like bits of lightning, like you would see.
Wow.
And I had no idea. I didn't think, oh, that looks like a praying mantis. I didn't think until a decade or more later make a connection with that. But I drew it down. I thought, this is an amazing being. He stood there, the lightning standing still, the conveyor of the divine Shakti standing there in front of me. And then he disappeared, bounded out in a flash, like a grasshopper. 3 little bursts of light bounded over the city, and he was gone.
Wow.
And so that was quite a mystical understanding. And since then, I've had these kind of hand movements that have come up. I thought that they were just an expression of the divine Shakti. I thought they were part of the Kundalini awakening, and maybe they are. But you were the first one that I started seeing using those things and referring to that as light language coming through. And to me, they just happen naturally. I never knew what they were. I never knew what I was saying while I was saying it, or the importance of it. In fact, when I came back down to earth and was lying in my bed, my feet started going into these paroxysms, these weird things where it's almost like Morse code coming into my feet. And it felt cramping happening. It was really, really scary, actually, because I felt totally possessed. And so that was my first experience. It must have been 15 or 20 years ago that happened. No context for it until many, many, many years later. And I started going, oh, that was the mantis being. And he or she had something really valuable to share with me in an energetic transmission that is only continuing to unpack over time and continuing to show itself. Does that resonate with your experience of who this being is and what your encounters have been?
It's before I go into my first encounter with mantis, is I totally get the ties that start to, so with the sort of the movements, like, you know, this sort of thing, as you're sort of saying with the hand movements, that it's a projection. It's not just is, but it's a projection. It's code that enters in the energetic field. So if anybody starts to want to move their hands about a bit, let your hands move, because these codes are so astounding. And if they move down to your feet, even better, because you're fully embodying. So the tips of the fingers and the toes, you know that the energy is running all throughout the body. If you start getting twitches in the face like this, or you start to take on twitches at all, just let them come in, because the body knows how to come online, just like with the intuitive breath. So that is the sideline. Just let these, you know, like these codes flow out. There's many, many people that I work with that have started or get activated through working with me. And when they do, it can be quite scary, because we're only programmed into mind and body. We don't understand yet. But the more that we start to then code ourselves, this is how I've got to the place I'm at. My codes started to come in, and then I started to remember. So these are remembrance codes as well as activation and release codes. Okay, so it's really important that people know that are listening. But going on to the mantis, it was interesting that I was doing, so it's on the beginning of the journey of my healing journey, working with people. My hands started to move about. I started sort of working with people with coding and Reiki. And there was one particular day that that I was in my healing room, so back in my old family home with that I was working at, and I felt this massive presence of energy. And now, like you say, it's about sort of 8 foot to 10 feet tall. I don't know in the stature of it, but it's a massive consciousness, physical presence that entered the room. And it held such the mantis to me, which is actually very different to Alexander's perception of his mantis, but my mantis holds a very powerful masculine energy, which is like a force of energy that's almost like a warrior type energy. And I'm going to call it a masculine energy, so I'm going to call it he, but he holds almost like a protective field around me. So when I go into energy that is holding a very dense energy, my mantis steps in and ignites within me. So I know that I am protected with his force of energy. Okay. So when I first was presented without that energy force, which wasn't ignited within me at that time, I felt that energy of like, whoa, what is that? I was using a little CD player at the time, back in the day, and it literally shut down the music. It just didn't work, and I could hardly speak. With, like you said, you go into this, what is going on? But then, so then that energy went, and I was like, okay. So it was almost like an introduction. And then a couple of months later, I was laying in bed, and this being was sort of moving through and awakening within me, just like you said, that spark of light. But it was embodying my body. So it's almost like if we could imagine that we're downloading an app on an iPhone, rather than it sort of igniting up and you having to put in your password and all of that. And it's sort of like easy access. So these multi-dimensional aspects are upgraded into our system where we literally just switch on Palladium, switch on Arcturian, switch on Mantis, switch on all of these other elements so rather than having to plug in, they are within us. They've awakened within us. So now my Mantis is literally just ready, available. You have a sense of calling them in, but you don't. You bring them forward. You bring that consciousness forward. So anytime that I'm working with somebody's energy that holds a very low density aspect of themselves or something that's infiltrated in their energy force, which is that galactic shaman element of me, Mantis steps in to say, yeah, you're good to go into that depths of darkness. So Mantis to me holds many, many gifts and talents, and depends on which frequency. Again, within all of the galactics, we all have different little gifts and talents that we do within our own lives, and it is very similar to the galactics. So you'll get more of a nurturing type of Mantis, but my Mantis being, it holds that force of energy that is very protective, very, very protective. So my experience was very, very profound at the time, but now it's embedded into my system, and I have that beautiful connection out of every. And I always say this, but my other aspects of like, is actually my absolute favorite is Mantis. And I'm putting it out there, universe, but it is, apart from Mother, Father, God, of all that is, obviously. But if I was looking at an element of fragmentation of myself, Mantis, I know, will always stand firmly, guiding me, keeping me safe. That's the way I see it. Whether that's truth of the total truth within it, but it's a story that we can create within ourselves. That my Mantis and me, we're a good, strong team.
That's really good. One thing I really love that you talk about in your book is how to heal your heart, and also how to work with the shadow in doing so. I think a lot of people have a really hard time working with the shadow, particularly people who tend to like spiritually bypass.
Yeah.
Oh, love and light, love and light. Let's bring all the light into the darkness, and we need to get rid of the darkness. Darkness bad, light good. I don't really subscribe to that. When I read your book, I think maybe you have a good vision for how to work with that and navigate that.
Yeah, I think the shadow. The easy ways to explain it is that you could dissolve the shadow. You don't have to push and shove and create an exorcism within it. It's like it's just send it love. Everything gets transmuted by love. And I know that through my own experience of working with people throughout the years, is that if I felt that there was this really nasty sort of, let's call it nasty block within someone's energy without giving it an identification, but if there's something in somebody's energy field, I used to spend ages trying to pull it out, try and transmute it through my energetic field. And I would spend like, get out, this sort of energy. And then all of a sudden, I thought, what about if I just send it a pulse of love? And that block literally just dissolved. So if I turn off my light here, I turn the light on, there is light. So with any shadow within us, if you love it, it might be sticky to hold, but if we observe it and are joyful in the experience of it, then we allow it to flow through us without identifying with it, criticizing it, judging it. You just literally just see it. So I've got a pain that is being presented within the small of my back. I don't identify with the pain in my back. I say, what are you trying to show me? What is it that is held within my body that is creating pain within the body that I'm not going to identify with? Because as soon as I identify with something, then you manifest and start to create. So if there's a pain that enters into my field within my physical body, I say, what is it that you're trying to show me, body? Then you love the pain within yourself, so that the energy, the distortion that is held within the body can start to show itself, and you might get emotional from it. There's some work that I did last night within my own experience, is that I started to get an emotion of very deep sadness within me, and it started to come up, and I allowed the sadness to move through me. I honored it. I didn't say, I'm sad. No, the energy of sadness is moving through me. The pain within the body is showing me the block that is in the physical body that is moving through me. So rather than holding on to anything that we might have as a past trauma, it is to send compassionate love to that force of energy. Kuan Yin is the most beautiful ascended master that I work with. Her energy is the compassion of heart. So if there's something that's sticky to hold, or if you're getting pain in the body, if you send compassion to that energy, then it is light and love that enters that shadow and literally will just dissolve it. It just lifts off with ease and grace. Because we're not giving it any power, you know?
I was thinking about my own studio. When you talked about your lights, one can go with the lights. Oh, you can turn them on and turn them off. I had a really interesting experience last year. There was a new moon. Did I tell you about that? Where there was a new moon and everything was very dark.
No,
I was confronted by my own shadow. So it's a new moon. This must have been October or November of last year. So there's no moonlight. It was an overcast sky, so there's no starlight. And in my neighborhood, there was a power outage right at that time, that same night. So we lost power, no electrical light. I had never experienced darkness that profound and total before. And in the middle of the night, I woke up when the power had gone back on again. Woke up from my reverie and said, Alexa, turn on the light. Oh no, she's going to try to turn it on now. and I was walking toward the bathroom, and I was really close to this wall, and I didn't realize how close it was. So she turned on the light, and it was like bam, and I saw my shadow right there in front of me in total stark contrast. And I realized, oh my gosh, it is so much a part of our lived experience. The shadow is not something to hide or disappear from or change. It is the very substance of who we are. And it is myself. When I call forward the light, it elucidates the shadow.
Yes.
The shadow is a function of that. Everything in this room, the plants, the shadows, all those are what delineates matter and form and gives this place reality. So people say, bring the light into the darkness. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think you can bring light into darkness. I think the darkness is already compressed light. It's already lighter than light. As you say, when you send love to that, you're allowing that light to unpack, which is already there, aren't you? I mean, that is a nuclear bomb that's compressed with light. People who are in trauma, they've had all that love in their life, and that light just compacted into one spot from being beaten or yelled at or mistreated. And it's just sitting there as darkness. But that's just a compaction of light. So if you can, as a healer or a shaman or anybody who walks this path, give them space for that to unpack, you'll see there's a huge mode of energy underneath that. It's a huge turbine of energy just waiting to be released if you treat it not with skepticism and fear, but with love, as you say.
Yeah, it's so super powerful, and it just brings peace by holding that ability to love whatever comes your way. And at the time, it might be very, very difficult to manage and to experience. There's many times that there are things that have entered my life that I would have questioned, well, why did that happen? But it did through that experience. But how do we actually deal with it? How do we manage it from our experience? And, if anybody's not familiar with Kuan Yin stories, is have a look at that compassionate heart, which is very, very interesting to move through to sort of deepen within yourself and to question, can you hold that? Can you hold your light through chaos? And those, things that sort of come in from the collective field, sometimes they will test us, but how do we walk through that journey? Can we hold it with that compassion so that we can move it through us, or do we hold on to it and start to identify with these things and start to create with our mind the words? So we're cycling back to the first subject, is that, oh, this always happens to me. This is, this, and, that person did that, and this. No, just allow it to move through you. Just have compassion in your heart. Just shine that light. Focus on your light. And then all of that trauma is not held within your system. You move it through you. And then within those shadows, they just literally just sort of lift from you. It's just lifting off that distortion, off the illusion. And then that emanation of light that then projects externally of you, which is, like you say, the film within inside of yourself, like Star Wars character, is that all comes from within. So the more work you do within, the more the external shifts and changes. So, we could say, well, I've got to heal this person, that person needs healing, that person needs healing. No, they don't. They're perfect the way they are.
Good.
They're perfect.
Uh-huh.
They just would give you a different experience,
Yeah.
Work on yourself.
And there's always that dance between what is myself and what is the internal and what is the external. I think you have a really evolved, wise way to look at that. And for those who are interested in deepening their understanding about these subjects, I would certainly recommend picking up a copy of this book, again, Pleiadian Handbook for Human Ascension, which I really love. It's one of, I think it's the second, but maybe the first full release that you've done. You worked on that other one in collaboration with others. Get ready, they're here. And I hope that it's one in a series of books that you'll be putting out. But for those who really are looking to have, deepen their understanding and go deeper, I would recommend connecting with you in whatever way would be appropriate for them. And I would like to ask you, what is the best way when we go to nicolalight.com? Is there, would you recommend booking a session there? Would you recommend getting into your videos that you find on YouTube first or Facebook? What do you think?
I think it's sort of like independent. It depends on the individual as you stand. If you really feel drawn within this conversation that there is something in the connection, which I get many, many times with people that are sort of opening up their energy field, then sort of a one-to-one call is always beneficial, because we can sort of deepen into that journey. So the distant healing's more if you feel that there's a really big block within yourself, because we go more into the subconscious mind. But the definitely sort of look through all of the information that is freely available on Facebook and freely available on YouTube if you're sort of testing the ground a bit. And group work as well works so beautiful. If you started with your light coding yourself, I run a monthly group. So have a look on my website for that as well. So it's under the events. So there's a light language group and also a high connection group. So every month I bring up transmissions that will assist people to upgrade their energy with the energy that's running in the collective. And as I said in the beginning, I've got 5 in-person retreats. I'm going to Sedona in April.
Oh, great.
Which is going to be really interesting with a group of people. So I've got some places as the tour only, not the accommodation. So I've got that's happening. And then Portugal in May at a beautiful healing centre called Neos, which is a wonderful space to work with us for sort of 3 days, sort of intensive work. And then we have Sweden. We're doing a little tour in Sweden, the UK near Glastonbury, and then finally in the year we're moving into Turkey, which I must say is so underestimated by many spiritual people. They tend to sort of go to different sort of spaces, but Turkey, when I set foot upon Turkey, I was told this is the central column of light. And when I stepped foot off the plane and I was, whoa, I know this space. I know this space and all the ancient sites. It's such a beautiful space. So we decided to do a tour in October, so you can always message me to find out more information about those. But that's something that I want to do more of, to actually get in physicality, because we can spend so much time in these little boxes.
Yeah.
But when you actually come face to face with somebody and you get that beautiful energy, that, a physical hug, there's nothing like it, is there? So many different things that are offering, but just sort of have a little look and see what resonates with you.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for doing this today.
Ah,
And I appreciate seeing you, and hopefully we can do it again. And for all of you watching, thank you for tuning in.